You think you know your children. You think blood is unbreakable. I did too. Until I discovered my forged signature was worth more than 50 years of raising him. This is not the story of a mother who was deceived. This is the story of a mother who learned how to turn her last $100 into a pair of handcuffs for her own son. My name is Margaret Thompson, and I am 58 years old. Or rather, I was. The woman who lived that quiet life seems like a stranger to me now. I was a widow, a retired librarian who had spent 30 years in the comforting silence of the Seattle Public Library, surrounded by stories. After my husband, Frank, passed away, my own story shrank. My world became very small, centered on my modest home, my hydrangeas, and my son, David. David was my only child, my anchor in the lonely fog that rolled in after the funeral. When he stepped forward, his face etched with concern, and offered to take charge of my finances, it felt like the purest form of love. "Mum, you've got enough on your mind," he said, his hand covering mine. "Let me handle the investments, the bills. Just let me take care of you." I wept with gratitude. I gave him everything. He was so efficient. He'd come over on Saturdays, his laptop open on my kitchen table, spreading out a fan of documents. "We need to modernize your portfolio, Mom," he explained, using words I didn't understand, but trusted implicitly. "Bonds are fine, but everything is digital now. We need to move these accounts online. It's just for convenience." Convenience. That was the word he used when he had me sign the power of attorney. "This just lets me access things if you get locked out, or if you're traveling," he'd said, brushing a kiss on my forehead. I signed without reading the fine print. He was my son. The first crack in the foundation was almost invisible. It was a Tuesday, the day my automatic payment to the Children's Literacy Fund was scheduled. I had donated to them every month for 20 years. I received an email, polite and confused. My donation had been declined. I called David, amused more than alarmed. "Honey, the bank seems to have had a little hiccup. The donation to the fund didn't go through." He laughed, a quick, dismissive sound that was slightly too loud. "A bank glitch. Mom, that's all. These old automated systems are always breaking. Don't worry about it. I'll handle it." He handled it. A few days later, a massive 70-inch flat-screen television was delivered to my house. I stared at the black, glossy void as two men mounted it to my living room wall, where Frank's favorite bookcase used to be. David arrived soon after, beaming. "You deserve it. Mum," he announced, gesturing to the screen. I didn't want it. I rarely watched television. "David, it's too much." "Nonsense. You've been frugal your whole life. It's time you enjoyed things." The television felt like a monolith, an intruder. It wasn't a gift. It felt like a payment, a gaudy, expensive way to silence a question I hadn't even known how to ask. It was a gilded silence. The unease began to curdle in my stomach. I started watching him. Really watching him. For the first time since he was a teenager. He started dropping by the house unannounced, always around the time the mail arrived. I'd be in the kitchen, and I'd see him through the window, standing by the mailbox, quickly flipping through the envelopes. Once, I came out, and he flinched, stuffing something into his jacket pocket. It looked like a bank statement. "Oh, just more junk mail," he said, handing me the catalogues and sales flyers. I'm saving you the trouble of sorting it." That night, I couldn't sleep. The silence from the new television felt heavy. I went to my old study, sat at the desk, and pulled up the website for my bank. The one he had modernized for me. I typed in my password, the same one I had used for 15 years. Access denied. I typed it again, slower this time. Access denied. I clicked the forgot password link. The security question popped up. "What is the name of your oldest childhood friend?" I typed Eleanor. "The information you provided does not match our records." A cold sweat prickled on my neck. I tried again. "In what city was your mother born?" I typed Portland. "The information you provided does not match our records." He had not just gained access. He had changed the locks. He had locked me out. And I, the retired librarian, was suddenly, terrifyingly, locked out of my own story. I didn't call David back. What would I say that I, his mother, had been locked out of my own life? The accusation was too monstrous to form. I spent the next 2 days in a fog, the silence of the house amplified by the enormous, dark screen of the television he had bought me. I watered my hydrangeas. I dusted books I had already dusted. I felt like a ghost in my own home, and the gnawing fear that I was being paranoid was almost as bad as the suspicion itself. On the third day, I saw my neighbor, Mrs. Petrov, wrestling with her recycling bin. I went out to help, and the simple, physical act of steadying the bin for her broke something open in me. Mrs. Petrov has lived next to me for 30 years. She is 70-something, with a spine of Eastern European steel and eyes that miss nothing. She's a widow, too. But where I had retreated into quiet, she had declared war on weeds, stray cats, and any neighborhood foolishness. She took one look at my face and said, "You look like you swallowed poison. Come in. I have coffee." I sat in her immaculate kitchen, which smelled of garlic and strong coffee. I found myself telling her everything. The words tumbled out the declined donation, the password that no longer worked, the way David had flinched when I caught him at the mailbox, the absurdly expensive television that felt like a gag. I finished, my voice thin. "He's my son. Elena, I must be going mad. It doesn't feel right." Mrs. Petrov put her cup down with a firm click. Her gaze was not sympathetic. It was sharp. "You are not mad, Margaret," she said. "You are just late. I was wondering when you would see." "See what?" "Your son." She leaned forward, her voice dropping. "He comes to your house, but not when you are here. He comes at night. 2, 3 in the morning." My breath hitched. What? Why? And he is not alone. She painted a picture that seared itself into my mind. She described David pulling up in his car and a young woman emerging from the passenger side. "She looks like a plastic doll," Mrs. Petrov said, her lip curling. "Hair the colour of a yellow taxi, and a dress that is less than a handkerchief. She was all over him, right there in your driveway." A hot, terrible shame flooded my chest. This was David. My David, who couldn't remember to replace the milk. I've seen them 3 times now. Mrs. Petrov continued, her eyes fixed on mine, forcing me to see. "The last time was 2 days ago. While they were here, the woman, she did something strange." "What?" "She was in the garage. David had the door open. She was walking around your husband's car. The old one. Frank's car. A 1967 Mustang, cherry red. his life's passion. David had promised to maintain it for me, to keep it safe in the garage, covered and protected. She was taking pictures of it. Margaret, Mrs. Petrov said, her voice hard. With her telephone, clicking and posing, like she was measuring it, like she already owned it. I sat back, the coffee cup trembling in my hand. David had never mentioned a girlfriend. Never. Not in all the months he had been helping me. A woman like that. A woman who would be in my house at 3 a.m, photographing my dead husband's car. It didn't fit. Unless it did. The declined donation, the locked account, the secretive trips to the mailbox, the gaudy television. And now, a plastic doll in my garage. It wasn't two different stories, one of financial confusion and one of a secret girlfriend. They were the same story. I looked at Mrs. Petrov, my eyes pleading for her to say it wasn't true. She didn't. She just refilled my cup, her hand steady. "A man who hides a woman," she said, her voice a flat, hard truth, "will hide other things. Margaret." Mrs. Petrov's words settled on me like a shroud. A man who hides a woman will hide other things. The pieces were all there. A horrifying mosaic I was too afraid to assemble. If I confronted David, he would deny it. He would use that smooth, practiced charm, make me sound like the crazy one, the senile, grieving widow. He would laugh and call it another bank glitch. No, I couldn't face him. Not yet. I needed facts. I needed the truth, printed in black and white, undeniable. I went home and I planned. I used the quiet, methodical precision that had once organized a library. I needed him to believe I was gone, completely unreachable. 2 days later, I called him. I practiced my voice first, making it sound thin, tired, and a little frail. "David? Honey? Mum? You okay? You sound tired." "Oh, I'm just so weary. David, everything feels very heavy." I let out a long sigh, a performance of grief. "You know the annual church retreat, the one up at the St. Jude's Lodge? It's this week. I think I need to go. Pastor Mike says it's 5 days, completely off the grid. No phones, no email, just quiet." The silence on the line was brief, but I felt it. A sudden, sharp intake of breath. Then, his voice, overflowing with a thick, artificial warmth. "Mum, that's a fantastic idea. Oh, you absolutely have to go. You deserve it. When do you leave?" "Tomorrow morning," I said. "The bus leaves at 9. "Don't you worry about a thing," he said, his voice almost giddy. "I'll take you. I'll pack you a lunch. You just get your rest." He arrived the next morning, brighter and more energetic than I'd seen him in years. He practically bounded up the steps, grabbing my small, pre-packed suitcase. He had packed me a turkey sandwich. He bustled around the kitchen, checking the locks, making a show of being the dutiful son. "You'll have such a good time, Mum. The mountains are beautiful this time of year." At the Greyhound station, he walked me right to the gate for the northbound bus. He wrapped me in a hug that felt less like affection and more like possession. It was tight, constricting. "Now you relax," he said, holding me at arm's length, his smile wide. "Don't think about a single thing, everything at home, all the boring stuff. I'll take care of it." "Thank you, David," I whispered, letting my eyes water. "You're such a good son." The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. He waited until I stepped onto the bus, and he waved as it pulled away. The bus went 2 blocks. At the first major intersection, I got off. I walked across the street, found the taxi stand, and got into the first cab. "Fifth and Union, please," I said, my voice no longer frail. The main branch of the City Central Bank. I was not going on a retreat. I was not going to pray in the mountains. I was going hunting. The bank lobby was a cathedral of cold marble and echoing footsteps. I suddenly felt very small, a 58-year-old widow in a beige cardigan, about to accuse her only child. I walked to the private banking desk, the one with the velvet rope. A young woman with kind eyes looked up. "May I help you?" I took a deep breath. "My name is Margaret Thompson. I am the primary owner of accounts ending in 4492 and 3017. I have been locked out of my online portal. My password has been changed without my authorization, and I suspect fraudulent activity." She typed my name. Her polite smile faltered. "Oh, I see your son, David Thompson, is listed here. He has power of attorney? He changed the passwords last week. He cited a potential security breach." "I am sure he did," I said, my voice flat. "I am here, in person, with my state identification and my passport. I am the owner of these accounts. I need temporary access, and I need hard copies of the statements for all of my accounts for the last 6 months." She hesitated. "Mrs. Thompson, if your son is managing—" The librarian returned, the one who commanded silence from rowdy teenagers without raising her voice. "Young lady," I said, leaning in just slightly, "I am telling you, I believe my accounts are being compromised. As the primary holder, I am instructing you to print my records. Now." She saw something in my eyes. She nodded. "Yes, ma'am. One moment." It took her 20 minutes. She returned with a thick sheaf of papers, nearly half an inch thick, bound by a heavy rubber band. She handed them to me as if they were toxic. I didn't go home. I couldn't. I found a hard, wooden bench in a quiet corner of the lobby. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely undo the rubber band. I sat down, opened the folder, and the world fell away. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't a mistake. It was a massacre. Transfers. Thousands upon thousands of dollars. Moved every week. Checks written to companies I had never heard of. And then, the destination account for all the large transfers, D&S Enterprises, David and Samantha, the plastic doll. I flipped the page, my breath catching in my throat. I turned to the statement for the joint savings account, the one Frank and I had built for 30 years, the nest egg, the one I had never, ever touched. The balance at the top of the page, $100. The marble floor seemed to fall out from under me. The polite, quiet hum of the bank faded into a roar. He hadn't just stolen from me. He had gutted me. I couldn't breathe. The polished marble of the bank lobby felt like it was tilting. The $100 wasn't a number. It was a joke. It was the punchline to a cruel, elaborate prank. I kept flipping the pages, seeing the transfers, week after week. $5,000 here, $10,000 there, all marching in a neat little line to D&S Enterprises. David and Samantha. My hand, still clutching my phone, was numb. I fumbled with it, my fingers thick and stupid. I hit David's number. I pressed the phone to my ear, listening to the ring. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. It went to his voicemail. "Hey, you've reached David. You know what to do? Leave a message." His voice was so bright, so cheerful, so full of life. I hung up. I didn't leave a message. A cold, sharp clarity cut through the panic. This money, the savings account, it was a tragedy. But it wasn't my life. My life, my future, my ability to live in my house and eat, was tied up in something else. It was tied up in the bonds. Frank and I had been meticulous. For 30 years, we had put money into solid, stable, government-backed retirement bonds. They were my locked room. The one thing I had told David. We never, ever touch this. No matter what. This is for when I'm old. The statements the woman had printed were just for the checking and savings accounts. The portfolio. The investment accounts, those were managed by a different division. I walked back to the desk, gripping the useless sheaf of papers. I felt like I was walking on glass. The same kind-eyed teller looked up, and her smile vanished when she saw my face. "Those transfers," I said, my voice a dry rasp. "They are fraudulent, but that's not. I need to know about my investment portfolio, my retirement bonds." She typed again, her fingers flying. She was quiet for a long time, her brow furrowed. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, her voice dropping to a professional, cautious monotone. "I'm afraid I cannot give you any information about that account." "What?" I said. "I'm right here. That's my name. Margaret Thompson. Look at my driver's license. Look at my passport." "I understand that, ma'am. But I cannot give you the information because the account is no longer active." "What do you mean, not active?" "I didn't deactivate it." She swallowed, clearly uncomfortable. "Mrs. Thompson, our records show that the entire portfolio was, well, it was frozen 2 weeks ago, pending a request for a total asset transfer. A transfer to where I never made a request." She winced. "The request was made, ma'am. It was accompanied by the power of attorney you signed, giving your son full access and control. And it was also accompanied by a signed letter of authorization. With your signature." I shook my head, a slow, disbelieving motion. No. I never signed anything like that. I would never." "We have the paperwork on file, ma'am. It was scanned." She typed for another moment, then turned her monitor slightly. I couldn't see the details, but I saw the shape of a letter. The transfer was completed. The portfolio was liquidated. I just stared at her. The words weren't connecting. Liquidated. "Yes, ma'am. The bonds were sold." "All of them," I whispered. The woman looked down at her keyboard, then back at me, her eyes filled with a terrible, corporate pity. "Mrs. Thompson, according to our records, you authorized your son, David, to liquidate your entire retirement portfolio 1 week ago." I don't remember leaving the bank. The next thing I knew, I was standing on the pavement, the thick stack of statements clutched in my hand like a brick. The sounds of Seattle, the buses hissing, the distant ferry horn were muffled, as if I was at the bottom of a deep well. Liquidated. The word was a death knell. $800,000. My entire future. Frank's legacy. I couldn't go home. Home was the house David had a key to. Home was where the 70-inch television sat in judgment. I had only one place to go. One person who had known Frank as long as I had. I took a cab I couldn't afford to the old financial district, to the wood-panelled offices of Arthur Harrison. Arthur had been Frank's estate lawyer, and, Over the years, a close family friend. He was in his 70s, sharp and meticulous, and had been semi-retired for a decade, which meant he only worked for people he liked. His secretary, Claire, who had known me for 30 years, took one look at my face, gasped, and waved me straight into his office, bypassing the need for an appointment. Arthur looked up from a thick brief, his silver hair immaculate. "Margaret, my goodness, what's happened?" I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just walked to his enormous mahogany desk and dropped the sheaf of bank statements. The rubber band snapped, and the pages fanned out across his blotter, a paper trail of my ruin. I finally choked out his name. "David? The bonds?" The bank said. "The bank said I sold them." The kindly, grandfatherly look on Arthur's face evaporated. The lawyer, the one Frank always called a polite shark, took over. He held up one hand. "Sit," he commanded. "Claire, bring Mrs. Thompson some water. Do not put any calls through." He turned his full attention to me. "From the very beginning, Margaret, do not leave out a single detail." I told him everything. The convenience of the power of attorney, the locked online accounts, the declined donation, the monstrous television, the fake retreat, the $100 left in an account that should have held my life. He didn't interrupt me once. He just listened, his face hardening into a mask of cold fury. When I was finished, he didn't reassure me. He didn't pat my hand and tell me it was a misunderstanding. He picked up his private line. "Claire," he said, his voice sharp. "Get me Roger Friedman at City Central, Investment Division. I don't care that it's lunchtime. Tell him it's an Arthur Harrison priority. And then get me the head of their fraud department." For the next hour, I sat in the leather chair, silent, as Arthur Harrison went to war. He was a master, pulling on 30-year-old connections, calling in favors, speaking a language of finance and law that was both terrifying and precise. He got bank managers on the phone who had refused to speak to me. He had things faxed and emailed. He was unraveling, in 1 hour, what David had spent months building. Finally, he put the receiver down. The silence in the office was heavy, broken only by the ticking of a large grandfather clock in the corner. "Well," he said, his voice grim, "the power of attorney you signed was ironclad. He had full authority to act on your behalf." "So it's legal," I whispered, the word tasting like poison. "Margaret," he said, leaning forward. "He didn't just move your savings. He did exactly what you feared. He liquidated the entire retirement portfolio, the bonds, the mutual funds, everything. The total cash out was $837,000. I made a small sound, a whimper. "Where did it go? Can we get it back?" He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "This is the disaster. Because you signed the POO. It's not a simple case of theft. The police will see this as a civil matter, a family dispute. He had authority. We can sue him. Yes. But that takes years. And if the money is gone..." "No." The voice that came out was not mine. It was cold, and it was hard. Arthur stopped. "No," I repeated, standing up. "I signed the power of attorney. I was a fool. I understand that. But the bank woman, she said I also signed a letter of authorization, specifically to sell the bonds. Arthur." I looked him dead in the eye. I never, ever signed a piece of paper telling him he could sell my bonds. I would remember that. Arthur went perfectly still. The air in the room changed. He was no longer a sympathetic friend. He was a predator who had just caught a scent. "Margaret," he said slowly, "are you absolutely 100% certain you did not sign that liquidation letter?" "As certain as I am that my name is Margaret Thompson." A slow, dangerous smile spread across Arthur Harrison's face. "Well," he said, "that changes things. That changes everything." He picked up the phone again. "Claire, get me a name. I need the best damn handwriting expert in the state of Washington." Arthur Harrison was no longer a friend. He was a general. "That signature is our weapon," he said, his voice clipped. "But the money is our target. If we don't find it, the signature is meaningless. David thinks you are on a mountaintop, praying. He thinks he has 5 days. We have 4. He didn't need to wait for a handwriting expert. He was already on the phone with a man named Kincaid, a private investigator who specialized in forensic accounting. "I'm not following the man." Arthur barked into the receiver. "I'm following the money. $837,000. It's a fresh wire transfer. I want its destination. Yesterday." He turned to me. "Go back to the hotel I've booked for you. Margaret, don't answer your cell phone. Don't check your email. Don't go home. As far as your son is concerned, you do not exist until Friday." I spent the next 36 hours in a sterile hotel room, staring at a beige wall. I was a ghost, haunting the edges of my own life. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just waited for the phone to ring. When it did, it wasn't my cell. It was the hotel landline. It was Arthur. "Get a cab. Meet me at my office. Now." When I walked in, he and a man I assumed was Kincaid were staring at a laptop screen. The room was thick with the smell of stale coffee. "There was no midnight meeting," Arthur said, not bothering with a greeting. "They don't need to. In your husband's day, moving this amount of money would have taken weeks. Armored cars. Now, they do it with a click of a mouse during a commercial break." Kincaid spoke. His voice was gravel. "The wire transfer was fast, but it wasn't clean. He's an amateur. He's arrogant." He explained the digital trail. The $837,000 had been moved from my investment account using the power of attorney into the D&S Enterprises account I had seen on the bank statements. That was the first step. "It sat there for 48 hours, Kincaid said, pointing to a line on the screen. "Then, 3 days ago, the entire sum, plus another 20,000 he'd drained from your savings, was wired out in a single transaction." "To where?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "A title and escrow company," Arthur said. "It was a cash purchase. Margaret. No mortgage, no loan application, no underwriting. The cleanest, fastest way to buy real estate. He bought a house." Kincaid clicked the mouse, and a new window popped up. It was a photograph of a building that looked like a stack of glass cubes pointing at the sky. "He bought a condominium," he said. "Penthouse level. The waterfront vista." My breath left my body. The waterfront vista. It was the most obnoxious building in Seattle. A place for tech billionaires and foreign investors. It was everything Frank and I had despised. My 30 years of indexing books, his 40 years of civil service, our entire, quiet, frugal life, had been converted into a glass box in the sky. "It was purchased," Arthur said, reading from the closing documents on the screen. 3 days ago. Free and clear." A bitter, cold rage was replacing the shock. "So, he owns it," I said. My son. He used my money to buy himself a palace. Arthur looked at Kincaid. The investigator just shook his head slightly. No, Margaret, Arthur said, his voice quiet, and now, full of a terrible pity. That's the part you're not understanding. He didn't put it in his name. I stared at him. D&S Enterprises. No, the holding company was just the laundry, the final deed. The title of ownership? It's not in David's name at all. He turned the laptop monitor so I could see the final, recorded document. It was a deed of sale. And at the bottom, under grantee, was the name. It's in the name of Samantha Reyes, Arthur said. The plastic doll. The woman from the driveway. He hadn't just stolen my retirement. He had given it to her. He had taken 58 years of my life, my sacrifice, my marriage, and he had handed it to his mistress, a woman who wasn't even 30, as a shiny, new toy. The name Samantha Reyes hung in the air, a final, brutal confirmation. The room was silent, but my ears were ringing. Kincaid, the investigator, tapped his pen on the desk. A name is good, he said, his voice a low gravel. A name gives us a face. And in this century, a face gives us a digital footprint. He turned back to his laptop, his fingers moving with a speed that belied his gruff appearance. People like this, he muttered. They're not just stupid. They're proud of being stupid. They need an audience. He typed her name into a search bar. Samantha Reyes. Samantha Reyes. Seattle. He clicked. Ah, here we are? Public profile. Of course. He turned the laptop so both Arthur and I could see. It was her. The plastic doll Mrs. Petrov had described. Blonde hair. A face that looked stretched and polished, and a surgically enhanced pout. Her Instagram feed was a shrine to materialism. She's a gold mine, Arthur said, his voice dripping with acid. Literally, Kincaid replied. He scrolled down. There were pictures of her in expensive restaurants, the dates corresponding perfectly with the first withdrawals from my savings account. There were pictures of her holding designer handbags I couldn't even name, still in their boxes, piled on a new bed. There were selfies in front of Frank's cherry-red Mustang, the one in my garage. And then, Kincaid stopped scrolling. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. He clicked on a post from 3 days ago. It was her, standing in an empty, glass-walled room with a view of the Puget Sound. In her hand, she was dangling a set of keys. Her smile was ecstatic. The caption read, "A new beginning. I can't believe it's finally ours. Thank you to my one and only love for making all my dreams come true. Waterfront vista, penthouse. He loves me, new life. My dreams. Given to her." "There's more," Kincaid said, his voice flat. He kept scrolling. The posts from the last 2 days were a flurry of spending. Shoes, purses, a new laptop, a watch. All of it bought with my money. All of it flaunted for the world to see. And then I saw the last post. It had been made just yesterday, after I was supposedly on a bus to the mountains. It was a simple, artsy photo. A single, crisp $100 bill, lying on a sleek, glass coffee table. Through the glass, the new, plush white carpet of the penthouse was visible. The caption was what stopped my heart. OMG, the old hag is finally gone for 5 days. My baby was so stressed. But now he can relax. He just dropped by and gave me this $100 in pocket money and told me to go buy something nice. Ha ha. As if I need it. He's too cute. Rich, blessed new life. Bye-bye future mother-in-law. I stood up. My legs were steady. The roaring in my ears was gone, replaced by a glacial, ringing silence. "Margaret," Arthur said, his voice concerned. I didn't answer. I just pointed at the screen, at the single bill lying on the table. "That's my money," I said. Arthur looked confused. "Margaret, all of it is your—" "No," I said, cutting him off. My voice was clear. "That one. That specific $100 bill." I saw the memory in perfect, agonizing detail. David at the bus station, his smile too bright. His hand reaching into his pocket and pulling out a crisp bill. "Here's some emergency cash, Mom, just in case." He hadn't withdrawn it from an ATM. He had pulled it from his wallet. It was a bill he already had. I looked at the screen, at the arrogant photo, at the caption that called me an old hag. David had taken $837,000 of my life's savings. He had taken my home, my security, my past, and my future. And then, he had driven to his mistress's new palace, taken a $100 bill from her, driven to the bus station, and put it in my hand. He had given me back $100 of my own stolen money and called it a gift. The librarian who had walked into Arthur Harrison's office was gone. She had evaporated, and in her place was a woman made of cold, quiet rage. The woman who saw that $100 bill on the Instagram feed was not a victim. She was a strategist. I looked at Arthur. "He forged my signature," I stated. It was not a question. The power of attorney was for convenience. The liquidation letter was a crime. Arthur's face, which had been full of pity, hardened with a new resolve. "Margaret," he said, "as your friend, I am furious. As your lawyer, I am limited. This goes beyond family law. This is a criminal matter. My firm is semi-retired. You don't need a comfortable friend anymore. You need a killer." He picked up his phone. "I'm bringing in Elena Alvarez. She's a partner in the firm. But she's the one we call when someone needs to be surgically and legally destroyed." The next morning, I met Elena Alvarez. She was not like Arthur, where he was all polished wood and empathetic wisdom. She was steel and glass. She wore a sharp, dark suit, and her eyes analyzed me, catalogued my pain, and then filed it away as motive. "Mrs. Thompson," she said. No preamble. "I've read Kincaid's report. The deed transfer is complete. The Instagram posts are a prosecutor's dream. Mr. Harrison tells me you are 100% certain you did not sign the liquidation authorization." "I am," I said. "Good," she said. "Then we begin. Our plan is not a lawsuit. Our plan is a detonation. We have until Friday, when you are supposed to return. We will move in 6 steps. She held up a finger. "Step 1. We retrieve the original document." Ms. Alvarez was a force of nature. She called the bank's general counsel, and in 1 hour, I was sitting in a sterile corporate boardroom, staring at the paper that had destroyed my life. The bank official who brought it refused to make eye contact. Step 2. We prove the felony. She had the handwriting expert on standby. He arrived, a fussy little man with a magnifying glass. He laid the forgery next to 3 greeting cards I had signed for Arthur over the years. He worked for less than 15 minutes. He looked up, not at me, but at Alvarez. "It's a forgery. It's definitive. The pressure on the G and P is inconsistent. The baseline is too controlled. He tried to trace it, but he pressed too hard. It was not signed by your client. Ms. Alvarez smiled. It was the first time, and it was the most chilling expression I had ever seen. Step 3, she said to me. We reframe the narrative. She looked at Arthur. This is no longer abuse of a POA. This is bank fraud, wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and elder exploitation. This is a federal case, but we'll start with the state. They're faster. She was already on her feet, a whirlwind of focused energy. Step 4. We freeze the asset. We spent the afternoon in a judge's chambers, filing an emergency ex parte motion. We presented the forgery analysis, the bank statements, and Kincaid's damning printouts of Samantha's gloating Instagram feed. Ms. Alvarez spoke, her voice clear and cold. Your Honor, this is not just theft. This is the calculated financial execution of a senior citizen by her only son. He has taken her entire $800,000 retirement and converted it into a luxury condominium, which he then gifted to his mistress, who is, as you can see, currently bragging about it online. The judge, a woman in her 60s, read Samantha's caption about the old hag. Her face turned to granite. She slammed the gavel. Emergency injunction granted. A lis pendens will be placed on the property immediately. That condo is now a crime scene. It is frozen. They cannot sell it, lease it, or use it as collateral. Next case. We walked out into the hall. Step 5, Alvarez said, checking her watch. We inform the police. We went to the Seattle Police Department's Economic Crimes Unit, with the signed judge's order and the forgery report. We weren't a grieving mother. We were a case. A detective took our statements, his face grim. Elder fraud is a priority, Mrs. Thompson? We will pursue this. We left the station. I should have felt relieved. I just felt cold. So, we wait, I said. Alvarez nodded. They'll build their case. They'll get a warrant. It will take a day or two. By the time you get back from your retreat, he should be in custody. I stopped on the sidewalk. No. Alvarez turned, surprised. No, that's not good enough, I said. The old, soft Margaret was gone. A warrant, they'll knock. What if he's not there? What if she's there alone? She'll play dumb. She'll say it was a gift. He'll get a lawyer, and he'll hide. I looked at her, the plan forming, clear as glass. He thinks I'm gone until Friday. He and that woman. They are in that condo right now. They're celebrating. They feel safe. You want to set the trap, Alvarez said, a slow, appreciative smile dawning on her face. Yes, I said. I want the police to find them together. I want them to be found with my money, in my condo. I want them to be cuffed while they're still drinking my champagne. I was still in my retreat clothes, a simple pair of slacks and a cardigan. When I left Ms. Alvarez's office, it was Thursday afternoon, 24 hours before I was supposed to return. The trap was set. The police were briefed, and a plainclothes team was monitoring the waterfront vista, waiting for the signal. Now, it was my turn to perform. I was the lure. I sat in a borrowed car a block away from my house. I took out my cell phone, my hand perfectly steady. I dialed David's number. It rang twice. Hello? His voice was distracted, buoyant. I could hear music in the background. Loud music. David. I pitched my voice low, filled it with gravel, and made it tremble. I coughed, a dry, rattling sound. His voice changed instantly. The joy snapped into a sharp, cold irritation. "Mum, what are you doing? You shouldn't have reception. Where are you?" I'm home." "David," I whispered. "I'm so sorry. I I think I caught something. I felt so ill this morning. I couldn't stay. I took the early bus back. I'm at the house." There was a sudden, muffled sound. He had covered the phone. I heard a distant, female giggle, quickly shushed. Then he was back, his voice a low, angry hiss. "You're at the house. Why didn't you call me first? I'm in the middle of a huge meeting. Mum, a huge deal." "I'm sorry, honey." I wheezed. "I just feel so weak. I didn't want to bother you. But I'm a little scared. I think I have a fever." "Well, just stay there," he said, his panic obvious. He wasn't worried about my health. He was worried I would ask him to come home. "Just lie down, take some aspirin, I told you. I'm with clients. I'm in meetings all day. I can't be disturbed." "Oh," I said, letting my voice crack with feigned disappointment. "Of course, dear. I understand. Your work is so important." "Right," he said, relieved. "Exactly. Look, just rest. Drink some tea. I'll check on you later. Maybe. I'll probably be working all night. I have to go." He hung up. He didn't say, "I love you." He didn't ask if I needed a doctor. He was an annoyed man in a meeting, brushing off a nuisance. I turned off the phone. I sat in the car for another minute, letting the cold, hard certainty fill me up. Then I started the car, drove the last block, and pulled into my own driveway. The house was cold. It felt wrong. The air was stale, and the enormous black television screen dominated the living room like a tombstone. It was the first time I had been inside since I left for my retreat. He had been here. There was a dirty glass on the coffee table. A pizza box was shoved into the overflowing kitchen trash. He had used my house as a crash pad, a convenience, while he was living his real life in the glass tower with her. I walked to the kitchen counter, and I saw it. It was a plain white business envelope. My name, Mom, was scrawled on the front in his impatient handwriting. I didn't need to open it. I already knew what was inside. But I did. I slit it open, my movements precise. Inside, there was a single $100 bill and a folded piece of notepaper. I unfolded it. The note had 3 words, scribbled in blue ink: pocket money, busy, D. He hadn't even called. He hadn't even texted. He had been in my house, seen my empty room, and his only thought was to leave me a tip, $100, the same amount he'd given his mistress, the same amount he'd given me at the bus stop. It was his signature. It was the price he put on my silence, on my absence. I stood in the kitchen, the house silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. He thought I was in my bedroom, sick, frail, and grateful for his $100. He was in a penthouse, celebrating my funeral. I picked up the $100 bill. It was all I had left of my old life. It was the sum total of my son's love, and I realized it would be everything I needed to buy my new life back. It was 7 o'clock at night. I sat in the silent, opulent lobby of the waterfront vista. Ms. Alvarez was beside me, her briefcase on her lap. The two plainclothes detectives stood by the elevators. We had waited for the signal. Kincaid had been monitoring Samantha's Instagram. 5 minutes ago, she had posted a video of 2 champagne glasses clinking, with the caption, "To us." We went up. The elevator was a silent, high-speed capsule. When the doors opened onto the penthouse level, we didn't need to guess which apartment was theirs. We could hear the music, a deep, thumping bass that vibrated through the polished marble floor. "Ms. Alvarez looked at me, a silent question. I gave her a single, firm nod. She did not knock. She pounded, her fist striking the heavy wood door 3 times, a sound that cut through the music. The bass abruptly stopped. We heard muffled voices, an annoyed male voice, David's voice. "Who the hell is that? Tell them we're busy." A moment later, the door was pulled open. David stood there. He was in an expensive, unbuttoned shirt, his hair mussed. He was holding a champagne bottle. He blinked at the hallway lights, annoyed. "Look, we're not interested," he started, thinking we were neighbors. Then his eyes focused. He saw me, his mother, the woman who was supposed to be in a mountain lodge, the woman who was supposed to be sick in bed at home. The blood drained from his face. The champagne bottle slipped from his hand and shattered on the entryway floor, the expensive liquid pooling around his feet. "Mom," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Mom? What are you doing here? Who is it? Baby?" A high, girlish voice called out. Samantha emerged from the living room, wearing nothing but a short, red silk robe. She saw me. She saw Ms. Alvarez. She saw the 2 large men standing behind us. Her face, a mask of manufactured beauty, twisted into a sneer. "Oh," she said, her voice heavy with contempt. "The old hag." Ms. Alvarez stepped forward, right past David, her heels clicking on the marble. "David Thompson," she said, her voice clear and cutting. "You are under arrest for bank fraud, wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and financial elder exploitation." The 2 detectives moved past her. "Sir, put your hands behind your back." "What?" David screamed, the sound echoing in the high-ceilinged room. He turned, his eyes wide with panic. "No, Mum. Tell them. Tell them this is a mistake. It's a misunderstanding." He began to sob as the first handcuff clicked onto his wrist. "Mum, please tell them." Ms. Alvarez turned her cold, measured gaze on Samantha, who was frozen in her robe. "Ms. Samantha Reyes," Alvarez said. "This condominium, and all its contents, were purchased with the proceeds of fraud. By order of the Superior Court of Washington, the asset is frozen and seized. You have 5 minutes to gather your personal identification and your purse. You will then vacate the premises." "No!" she shrieked, the sound high and thin. "You can't. It was a gift, he gave it to me. It's mine. You can't take my things." I stepped inside. I walked past the hysterical girl. I walked past the detectives securing my son. I walked into the main room, my apartment, for the first time. The walls were glass. The view was the entire city, glittering below. The room was filled with gaudy furniture, shopping bags from stores I had never entered, and the smell of spilled champagne. This was my life's savings. I turned back. David was sobbing, a pathetic, broken creature, held up by the officers. "Mum, I'm sorry." He wept, his face red. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I'll pay it back." I swear. Please, don't let them do this. I walked over to him. I looked into his eyes, the eyes of the boy I had raised, and saw only the man who had abandoned me. My hand was steady. I reached into my coat pocket. I pulled out the crisp $100 bill he had left on my kitchen counter. I stepped close to him. So close, I could smell the champagne on his breath. I shoved the bill deep into the breast pocket of his expensive shirt. "This is $100, I said, my voice so cold it barely sounded like my own. "For bail. It's all you have left from me." I turned around. I walked out of the apartment. I did not look back at his screams or at her hysterics. I walked out, leaving them to the law and into the rest of my life. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from today. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary. Give this video a like. And please hit that hype button to help more people hear this story.